Hey there YouTube, this is Mr. Weissman4 and today you are watching part 4 of my How to Program in Android tutorial series. And today I wanted to cover relative and linear layouts, more importantly what they are, how they work, and kind of when you would use them. But instead of hopping right into the code for it, which I am going to show code for this more in the linear layout than the relative version, I wanted to explain to you guys what these actually are and give you a very detailed way of understanding them because I think it'll help you understand in the design of your own projects. So, I'm going to show you guys kind of a way that I learned how these actually work. So, let me open up Paint. There we go. Alright, so what I'm going to do is draw an actual diagram of what these are like. So, this one is going to be linear. Okay, so let's start with the relative layout. Say you have a screen. It's like that. That's your screen. And that's your screen. So these are your two screens for your layouts. What a relative layout actually does is places objects on the screen relative to where other objects are. Linear layout, as it sounds, places them one after the other in a linear vertical view. So when you create an XML file, it is either encased in some kind of view. Its main overall thing is some kind of view which takes up the entire screen generally. So what you want, say you have a relative view. What that would do is then inside of there, any text boxes, images, and whatever you would place on the screen, you'd write it out in your XML code, line by line. And when you put, like, say the first one was an image view, it would go on your screen, and you'd set it up like this, and it'd take up, like, say it took up this much of the screen. What you would then do is the next image, you could say place under the original image. So you would say if this is image 1, then you would tell it to place under image 2, and if you placed two images on the screen, you'd say place image 2 under image 1 and to the left of image 3. And then image 3, which you would have to have there, otherwise it would throw an error, you would have image 3 and say place under image 1 to the right of image 2. So say this is image 2 and image 3. And that's how you could move things around on your screen. The problem that I have with relative views is that if you're not careful, they, one, do not scale right all the time on different screen sizes if you mess things up. Secondly, they can get kind of weird and funky, and they take a lot more code to get things to go where you want them to go, because you have a lot more actually freedom and control with a relative view. But you can do the same things with a linear view, and I'll explain to you how. But you could actually end up having, like, say image 2 is, say image 2, right here. You could accidentally have it where it's like, well, you could actually have it as image 2 is like down here, image 3 is still up here, and you have like this gap. And then when you put in like the fourth thing, like say like a text box, you might have like this like hole in here if you don't line things up properly and get them all the correct size. Because if these images are the different size to begin with, and you don't have them scale correctly to the exact same size, different screen sizes and so on can actually leave like sometimes like a hole or a gap in here, and it can mess up your project on different screen sizes. This might look fine on your emulator or on your phone, but it might not look the same on somebody else's. Linear views scale right pretty much almost all of the time, as far as I've known. How they work is like this. Say this is one whole linear view, it's originally set to vertical. Everything you place will be automatically under the thing above it in the XML layout. So say this is a text view, this is 1, 2, 3, and so on. So but if you want to place things like this, like where you have 2 and 3, you can do this really easily with what I call a nested linear layout. You can have a linear layout, or even another relative layout if you wanted, but I do linear layouts for everything pretty much. Linear layout inside of another linear layout. So since your whole screen is one linear layout in the XML file, you can have your image up here, which is image 1. You can then place another linear layout in here, set its size to be the width of the screen and its height to be however high you want it, like this. So that's your new linear layout right in here. This is now linear layout 1, and then inside this layout, you can place your two images 2 and 3. So you'd have 2 and 3 in here. So 2 is over here, 3 is over here. To get them like that, you would actually make this whole linear layout right here, this piece, you would turn this into a horizontal linear layout instead of orientation vertical like the whole screen is. So the things inside here will place one first starting to the left, and then the next one will automatically be placed to the right of it. And you can actually set this thing called a scale width, which I'll show you inside the code, to have them take up the exact amount of screen space that you want within that linear layout. And then you just place another thing outside this linear layout in the main one, and that'd be image 4, and it would auto place image 4 down there. So that's kind of how that works. You can get multiple things like that. These can be different sizes if you want, take up different amounts of space inside this linear layout. And so I just think linear layouts are a lot easier to control, a lot easier to understand, and they look neater. And in my own mind, the way that they work just is a lot easier to understand than relative views, because relative views also take a lot more code to get things to place exactly where you want, because you have to make sure this is above this is to the left, this is under this. All you have to do is put the width, put the height, its weight if you have things inside a linear layout, and just nest them the way you want. And you can actually, when you're designing things, a lot of people do draw diagrams like this of where they want certain things on the screen to be. So it can help you understand it, and it's real easy to understand once you actually get into the code. So I'll show you in a linear layout inside this code. So let's make a new project. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Okay, so now we have our linear layout and our main activity set up for the new project. This is my project layout practice. So we have this layout. Now to start placing things in here, we have a linear layout to start. Its width is set to fill the parent up, its height is set to fill the current parent up, which is your current screen size, and its orientation is set to vertical. There's a lot less code than it shows up in a relative layout, and it's a lot easier to understand, I think. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a text view. This is going to be the top of the screen. This is Android layout width is equal to match the parent, which is pretty much the same as fill parent. It's going to match the size of the screen. Android, and its parent is whatever layout view it's in, which is this linear layout, which is the main one. Its height, it's going to be wrap content. You want to, in my advice with text views, always do wrap content for the height, otherwise it can end up stretching the text out. Wrap content will make it automatically enter to the next line and return and keep going when it hits the side of the screen for your height wise when you're putting in text. So that keeps it nice and neat. And Android, let's just put some text in here. You really should be putting this inside of a string XML, but right now I'm just going to manually type it in. Okay, so we have this in here. Now this text is going to show up in there, and I'm going to make it bigger now, so it takes up more space. Text. You can change its color and all that too if you want. Size, let's do 30 SP. Alright, so now we have a text view in there. So what I want you to do is then go ahead and open up your emulator. So we're going to do our test device. So go ahead and open this up, start it up, launch it. You don't have to wipe the data if you don't want. Scale it to original size. That helps it make sure it looks the right way compared to the screen size. We're going to go ahead and open this thing up. This might take a couple minutes. Make sure you don't accidentally X out of this, otherwise you're going to have to wait through the whole time to reopen the sucker, and that will stink. So this is open. Now we want to install this program onto our device. So go to your Java file, click Start, select it as an Android application, click OK, and what it's going to do is going to start installing this onto your emulator. Might take a couple seconds. There it goes. There we go. Hello world, this is practice. So you see in the linear view, this is the first object up on the screen. Imagine that our boxes that we did back in the paint thing, right here. This, number 1, is our text view right here. So now we want to put two things underneath of here in a nested linear view, and I'll show you how to do that. It's real easy. Go back to your XML file, and this, the way an XML file lays out is actually pretty nice for a linear view because it actually kind of looks like it. You have your overall nested linear view right here, your object inside of there, and then we're going to put another linear view inside. So linear layout, how big you want it to be, so have it match parent. then Android, which it's what this one's matching is the overall layout view. So, height. Can't spell. Height. So, now this is where it gets kind of weird, and I'm going to explain this. You could have it match the parent, which is going to take up the rest of the remaining space inside the screen. You could have it wrap content, where the largest object inside this layout is going to determine the total size of the actual layout, depending on how big it is. Or what you can do is something funky, where you can actually set the original size of it. Like how many pixels you want it to be. Now, it's not exactly set in pixels. What this is called DIP, and DIP are going to scale the size of this correctly for every screen size. So it will take up the same amount of space on a large screen as it will on a small screen percent-wise. So if it takes up 50% of the screen on a large screen, it will take up 50% of the screen size on a small screen. The images will just be smaller or whatever it is that you have in there. It'll scale it correctly. So always use DIP. Don't use like the pixel stuff, because that is actually going to set it to the actual pixel size of that screen. And when the screen resolutions change, it won't scale always correctly. So we're going to make this one like 300 DIP. Now let's make it 250. 250 DIP in height. And then we're going to go Android, our orientation. So we want our orientation to be horizontal this time. So now we have a linear layout in here. Well, no, this should be like this, then bring it down. So now we have a linear layout in here. Now say we want to put 2 images in here. I'm real quick going to show you guys how to place images inside your app. I'll do a more detailed thing on this later and how to control images more. But right now, let's just go ahead and place our images inside of here. Don't worry about which folder you stick it in, it'll be fine. So we have 2 images in one of the folders over there in Drawable, so we'll be able to call those. So I want to do an image view, and like I said, I'm going to do an entire video next time on image views and buttons and controlling them and all that. Right now I'm just showing you how these layouts work, because you have to kind of understand the layouts first before you can start doing this stuff. Real quick, I'm going to put a small image in here. It's these 2 card images. So its layout width is going to be, let's just do wrap content, and its height is going to be wrap. Well, now let's make it fill. It's going to match the parent. And then here's where we want to change some things. So when you're working with images, you want them to scale correctly and you want them to change their size depending on the container they're in. So first, we're going to do Android, scale type, equal, and you have all these things. You want it to change to fit XY, so it's going to fit the size that you specify, which is wrap content match parent, but these are going to be determined by stuff we do next. And then Android, adjust view bounds. This allows it, this is a Boolean, it allows it to change the size of the original image from what it was when you put it in there. So that allows it to adjust view bounds. This tells it how to scale the image. And then we're going to do Android weight 0.5. We want to take up half the size of our container, which is this nested linear layout. And then Control-C. Copy this sucker down here, make another one, because they're going to be equal in size. So now we have these 2 things. There's nothing in them yet, though, so we're going to place the image in it. Droid src. src lets you access image views for the drawable stuff. So equal to @drawable. This is telling you what folder to go to. It's going to go to any of the drawable folders you can find this in and pick it. If it's related to screen size, later on it will pick that. I'll go over that later. So we're going to do 2C. You don't have to put the JPEG on there. It knows that. So now we have this drawable image in here. And then we're going to go down here. Android src is equal to @drawable. What was the other one? 2D. So now we have our images in there. So we have 2 images inside both these image views. We want this one. If you want to, what it's automatically going to do is place this one to the left and this one to the right. You could change that stuff around if you want. Again, I'm going to go over all the moving controls and stuff for image views later. So let's go ahead and test this and see what it looks like on our emulator. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so what I did was I placed the images in here just real quick out of the image view. But like I said, I'm going to go over this in image view section later. When you place images into a drawable folder, it doesn't matter which drawable folder it goes in necessarily unless you're trying to scale them for the right size screen. But card 1 and card 2, they were originally, before, when I started 2C and 2D, images cannot have numbers before them in the drawable files. They have to be all lowercase letters, no spaces between them, and they have to start with letters, and numbers don't need to be in there if they don't want. They just can't start with a number. Otherwise, it throws an error when you're trying to compile. So I changed it to card 1 and card 2 and restuck them in here. So now it's card 1 and card 2. So we're going to go ahead and compile this in our emulator. Show you guys what it looks like. So these are what our images look like. They don't look good. They're real low quality. They're JPEGs. PNGs would look better. But we have our image there and our image there. So you can see how that places one up here. Here's our linear view, this whole thing. And then we have image 2 and image 3. And then if I want to place something below there for 4, I would just come outside this linear layout right here, because you see these two are connected, and go text view. You don't even have to retype it if you don't want. You can just copy it from above. Control C, Control V, change this one to something, whatever you want to type. And then we'll reload it into here and reinstall it on our emulator. So this will close, and then it'll reinstall the new program on there that we just did. No, I don't want to see the time. Go away from there. Okay, there we go. And now you can see it's hello world, this is practice, our two images, and oh dang, this is different. So you have 4 down here, 3, 2, and 1. And you can see how linear view makes it real easy to lay this stuff out. If I wanted to, I could place text here, image, text over here on the side, and it would auto indent to not cover up this image. It would just stay in this section of the screen over here. If I wanted to make this one take up more screen size, it's real easy to change, unlike in a relative view, where you have to mess with the actual DIP and all the different size stuff. I can just go 0.75, 0.25. This layout weight stuff does not work in a relative view, which is why I strongly advise beginners to stick with linear layouts. And to be honest, once you pick a layout style you like using, just stay with it. I use linear layouts for almost everything because I think they're easier to control. They take a lot less code. They're easier to just copy and paste from older things. If you have a style layout already set up, if from one project, if you want your screen to look the same way, you can bring it over to another one. As you can see, this is what it looks like now. After I change this one to take up 75% of this layout, this one takes up only 25%, and it automatically scales them correctly based on the amount of weight that it takes up in the screen. So it's real easy to change this stuff around. It's not hard to understand because it actually kind of looks the way it's supposed to look on the screen with text, our middle piece, nested linear layout, our images inside there, and then the text underneath. So that's just my quick tutorial on linear and relative layouts. If you guys want me to actually do a video showing relative layout code, I can. Like I said, in most of my tutorials, I'm going to be doing linear views and sticking with those because I think linear views are easier to control stuff on a phone anyway, because it's the phone, generally most people want to do a linear thing. What happens when you get off the screen? In a couple videos, I'll also put up a scroll view layout. What you would actually do is nest this entire linear view in a scroll view. So what you would be able to do is then scroll, like click and drag and scroll up and down the screen and see stuff that would be down here off the screen if you had too much on there. So I'll do all that in a later video. I hope you guys enjoyed this and it helped you understand layouts a little bit better. And I hope that the diagram helped. This is, again, it's very rudimentary, but if you were ever working on your own project, I advise you do this before you actually start coding so you can get an idea in your head how you want it to look like, say, oh, your title up here, your buttons and all your stuff and where it's at on the screen. You can even split these up further and nest another linear layout in linear layout 2 and have that one be a vertical one. And in 2, have 2 things in there, here and here, and then they'd be, take up this much. You'd tell this one inside to take up 50% of the original linear layout, and then this would still be over here. So you can do all kinds of stuff and just keep splitting it up over and over again as many times as you want, compared to a relative layout where you just got to smush everything together and hope it stays there. So that would be why I preach linear layouts more than anything else, and that's what I'm going to do in most of my tutorials. I will try and do a few relative layouts just for kicks so you guys can see it. But like I said, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, YouTube. Come back next week and I'll definitely have up part 5 where I'm going to go over some of this, more of this image view stuff, show you guys how to do all kinds of really cool stuff with images and buttons, and how to actually create your own custom buttons so you don't have to use the ones that they have set up in Android, so you can make your project more of your own. Have a good one, YouTube. Thanks for watching.